Dum da dum da dum. You already singing? You're singing live, Dave.
There's a couple of things to sing about.
Good. Well, listen, I would say that we are generally in a very good place right now. I am very happy about so much of the news that is coming in. We are going to deal with some of the things that came up this morning. Our president got a little hot and heavy, shall we say?
Red under the collar?
Yeah, red under the collar. I'm going to put that in the auspice of stress. I'm going to say that Bibi got a little hungry. He kind of stepped outside of the realm for just a moment of reasonableness, but he reeled it back in. I think that was good. We are going to talk about everything Israel right now. Folks, let me tell you something. Israel has a significant battle to fight.
Oh, no. We're still in the beginning of this.
That battle is going to be Gaza. We're going to talk about that. But the problem with Gaza right now is the fact that the Prime Minister of Israel may have endangered his operations in Gaza. I said Gaza. May have endangered his operations in Gaza by being a little too hungry and dropping bombs or trying to drop bombs after the peace treaty. We'll talk about this, or the ceasefire. We'll talk about this because it's not as simple as it seems. There's a lot of nuancing that has to go on. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what really is the bigger part of this. The 12-day war is over, undoubtedly. But there is a massive battle. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about things, the cleanup operation that needs to happen now, which is going to be consequential and, yes, dare I say, very significant. And we are going to take some questions and answers. One statement I want to make to all of you doing the super chats and super stickers: we want to thank you right now for your support. It means a lot to us. Look, it goes a long way to me and my family, and I'm very grateful for that. And we will read those super chats and super stickers when we get to the Q&A time. As a matter of fact, those questions will be the first questions that will get read, obviously, because we're going to be reading them. So with that, we've got a lot to talk about. Oh. David, why don't you give us the status update on everything that's going on? I don't need to ask how you're doing because I know you're doing well.
Well, I was up late last night.
Well, yeah, and you did a great video, by the way.
Wait, Ken, video gets out, so if you do want to see a little bit about what's going on, then hit the Balagan connection. It's over. And the Israeli authorities actually allowed my mom to go have ice cream today.
That was probably one of the nicest things I heard this morning when you came in to talk. I think it's good. You got to get closer to your mic, by the way.
We're there. So schools are opening, businesses are opening, flights are opening, which has me a little bit worried because I got to get back there in September. But all kinds of things are opening. The feeling in Israel right now is that the 12-day war is over. But let's talk about the problems that we're going to have in this. And the first thing I want to say again, before we get all giddy and all excited, the number I have is 28 people were killed for this to happen. But it's not only that. 3,900 wounded. That is a huge number. That's almost 4,000 wounded people. Now, the reason a few got killed and a lot got wounded is because of the safety rooms, the bomb shelters, the fact that they dropped half a ton of high explosives on a residential building, and nobody died. People got wounded, but nobody died, which I think is a major issue. 15,000 people have left their homes, have had their homes destroyed. That's a huge number, too. I mean, there's 50,000 homeless people today, and the cost has been in billions. So let's make it very, very clear. This has been a war. Now, after saying all of that, this is less than what Israel was afraid of when we started this war. We went into this war, according to what we know from the numbers that were given to the leadership that made the decision. The numbers that they were given were much higher than this.
Yep,
much higher than this. We thought. I mean, we overrated the Iranian capabilities. We underrated the defensive capabilities that we had. And we also underrated I'm going to say, the obedience or the cooperation of the Israeli public to be in the bomb shelters in time. And I think, again, these are wars that the military fights, but the public has to endure.
Right.
It's a new kind of war where the military is the how do you say, the active element, but the casualties are in the civilians. 15-year-old girl was killed yesterday in the last last wave of bombs that Iran sent at the exact last moment in order to be able to get the last blow in before Israel could react and created the situation that we're talking about now with President Trump.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is this war has come at a cost. Let's not forget this, and let's not forget that the situation in Gaza hasn't been done. That being said, we can talk about what did happen, and there are a lot of things that did.
Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about. First of all, when the ceasefire came up, the conditions on the ceasefire were very specific. The conditions on the ceasefire is Iran would have 6 hours to stop their operations. After 6 hours, they would have to stop. Israel had 12 hours to stop their operations. Now, there's a lot of ignorance regarding this issue, as into why Iran was given 6 hours and why Israel was given 12 hours. I'm going to explain that really quickly. The reason why in ceasefires people are given a specific period of time is because what oftentimes happens is the military heads give orders to people to execute certain things. And oftentimes when those orders are given, radio silence is a part of those orders. The lack of ability to be able to contact people becomes a part of that. Sometimes there are things that require certain operations. This is often with Mossad, certain operations that don't have any check-ins whatsoever for as long as, 10 hours at a time, 5 hours at a time, 8 hours at a time. Iran doesn't have any such real operation. Every single person who was operating under the auspice of what the Iranian attacks were on the ground, and they were being directly communicated to by any of their IRGC commanders or whoever was left to be alive to do all that. Israel, very different. Israel, when you've got fighter jets that get in the air, sometimes they are mandated to keep their radios off for a certain period of time. We did this with the stealth bombers. This was something that it happens a lot. So the idea here is that 12 hours for Israel was the time that they said they would have needed to, in essence, call everything off. Now, the problem is it would appear that either Bibi did not call something off that he could have, or just ordered probably the largest bombing that they've done, or the largest airstrike that they've done since the beginning of the war in that first hour of the ceasefire. Now,
No, we didn't bomb anything in the first hour.
my guess,
I'll tell you what happened. According to Israeli press, and this might be something, as far as I understand, they fired the last round of bombs that hit Israel. Literally, they fired them probably minutes before, which means they landed minutes after the 7.
You mean that hit Iran?
No, that hit Israel.
Iran fired missiles that hit Israel.
That hit Israel a couple of minutes after the ceasefire.
Okay.
Meaning they probably pressed the button before. Before the ceasefire, Israel pulled off the biggest bombing campaign of everything since the war. But they stopped it at 7. So basically, 4 people were
Right, which
killed.
was an hour after the ceasefire was called.
No.
They stopped it an hour. 7 would have been an hour after the ceasefire was called.
7 in Israel, I think, is when the ceasefire was called.
Huh.
So we were in the ceasefire. What happened was this. The 4 people that were killed at the end by the last wave of rockets were killed literally 2, 3, 4 minutes after the ceasefire was actually in effect. But that wasn't the issue. So all of Israel was angry about this. Iran was kind of posing this as the great achievement. Look we've brought Israel to its knees, and they showed that to their people. But there was one rocket that came 2 hours afterward. And it was fired. It set off the sirens.
But was within Iran's 6-hour period or outside of their 6 hours?
All of this is after.
Okay.
All of this is after. This was how do you say, a breaking of the ceasefire. Everybody knew it. The rocket was intercepted, but Israel decided that we cannot let that happen without reacting. So we bombed the site in Iran.
No, that was actually
afterward.
Yeah, that wasn't a big deal. As a matter of fact, no one really commented on it. I'm talking about the bombing that Israel did basically at the edge of the 12th hour. In other words, before the ceasefire ended, in other words, in that 12-hour period that Israel had to be able to fire away, they launched the biggest bombing campaign so far.
Yeah.
Okay?
Definitely.
Yeah. So Trump was upset with that because Trump says, in essence, or Trump's feeling is, why would you do that? Yes, you had 12 hours, but why did you like, that's like a last kind of like a, let's get in our, because the purpose of the 12 hours, if you really think about it, is to wind things down, not get in your last punches.
Yeah, but again, both sides want to get the deterrence in. The whole thing is the deterrence.
No, that's true. No, that's true.
Both sides are on that one.
That's true. That's true. Technically,
but
Israel met the requirement of the ceasefire. They definitely stayed within the rules of the ceasefire. Iran did not. But the reason why the president was upset was because, yes, Israel stayed within the rules of the ceasefire, but their largest bombing campaign took place within that 12-hour period. Is that how I understand it?
I understood that he was upset about the last bombing campaign that we did as a reaction to their rocket. That he said they fired a rocket by mistake. You could have let it go.
Oh no! In that media where he basically, blank Iran. Israel and Iran don't know what they're blanking doing.
Yeah.
It was in that interview where he actually was upset by the fact that Israel, in that 12-hour period, decided to just go bombs away in that 12-hour period.
He kind of felt, my feeling, and again, we felt that he said, okay, here's the situation. I've cleaned the table for you. Now go live with it. And both Iran and Israel, and by the way, we've got a problem right now, too. I don't know if you know, but Israel is seeing people going back into the facilities that were bombed. Into Fordo. They're trying.
So that means they haven't destroyed Fordo.
That means they're trying to see if they haven't. Nobody knows what's happening underground in Fordo. Okay, but we see movement around the sites in Fordo. So the question is now what's going to happen? Is Israel going to bomb them? Is it not going to bomb them? Are we going to allow this? And we haven't heard the final agreement. Okay, so now what's the agreement? You're not going to go for a nuclear program? Are you going to continue manufacturing, long-range missiles to be a threat for us? Are we going to allow you to become the enemy that you were before? And that's where we're at right now. And
shouldn't we just fill that hole with cement?
Well, who does it?
Okay.
Who does it? I mean, and Saba. No, and by the way, the Fordo, for instance, is buried. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
But again, there's those vans, those trucks that got out of there a little bit before that. We're wondering what's going to happen there.
Yeah, because we're all thinking that they recovered nuclear material before that bombing took place.
Yeah. And where is that? And again, there have been kind of talk about the fact that somebody in Russia said that we will supply nuclear capabilities or nuclear weapons to Iran if we need. We know that Russia, China, South Korea, and North Korea all have an interest to keep a nuclear Iran in the air, even if it's not real.
It'll never happen. It'll never happen.
Well, the threat's there.
Yeah,
they're trying to keep the threat
Putin
in
will
the air.
never let Medvedev do that. He'll never let him do that. There's no way. Because the problem that you have is by doing that, then the only viable option is that the Strait of Hormuz goes into play. And if it goes into play, then you're going to have major energy problems, and that's where I think we're gonna see.
I don't think they can. I mean, again, if there's anything that's left, there's no Iranian Air Force, there's no Iranian missile force. The only thing that the Iranians have is a navy.
Yeah.
And if they touch the Strait of Hormuz, the United States of America, with the aircraft carriers that are situated right there at the entrance to the Gulf of the Persian Gulf, will decimate the Iranian Navy
No, 100%.
in a day. So I doubt if they're going to touch that. Another thing is the reason they won't do that, because if they close the Strait of Hormuz, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think that I'm being misunderstood. Russia will never put a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to do it. As a matter of fact, the reason why they won't do it is because they're thinking of the Strait of Hormuz. You have to consider it this way. If the Strait of Hormuz is gone, then Russia's ability to supply oil is going to be diminished dramatically. And the reason why it's going to be diminished dramatically is because Iran's oil supplements what the deals that Russia has made with China, supplements the deals that they've made with portions of Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still in the process of rebuilding the damage that was done with Nord Stream being destroyed. So they have to rely upon Iranian oil and the vessels that carry Iranian oil in order to meet the obligations that they have to be able to facilitate what's necessary for China's consumption, as well as many others. But the problem is China's consumption for oil is going to dramatically diminish on lots of levels. Okay? Lots of levels.
How come?
Okay? Because, look, you have to keep this in mind. This is, like, super critical. Let's back up. Okay? Let's back up. If right now you find yourself in a place where China is all of a sudden, like, time freezes and nothing moves with China, China's in big trouble. China's been dramatically affected by the tariffs. Their internal factories are shutting down.
Turns out that they have a birth rate problem.
Yeah, they have a birth rate problem. They have an implosion problem. They have a, for lack of a better way of describing this, they have a deflation problem that's destroying their economy. If their factories stop working, their energy consumption slows down. They lose the ability to be able to feed the machine that needs to be working in order to create the infrastructure they need to put into effect the dominance that they want to put into effect. Their force multipliers are losing in the South China Sea. The Philippines are not backing down in their position. China, based on what Trump did with the bombers, now has been officially signaled that we have resources anywhere and everywhere, and we can do anything we want. So Taiwan is now off the table. And so China is having to face a very difficult decision to make. Do we go with the program with the United States of America, bring some things back online, and start driving down the path that brought us into the need for energy consumption? Or do we fight this the whole way through and risk the complete annihilation of our existing GDP? And the answer to that is they're gonna play ball with the United States. So if they're going to play ball with the United States, they absolutely cannot afford to become complicit with arming Iran with anything.
Okay, I want to add a couple of elements to the Chinese problem. I don't know if you've probably kind of looked at it. Have we talked about the first island chain issue with China? And the very problematic geography that China has. Okay, because if you look at the map, okay, Taiwan and a series of islands that lead down to Philippines on the south and lead up to Japan on the north, actually, how do you say, encircle China's access to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, add on to the fact that from the shores of China, anything that goes to the shores, through the shores of China or out, has to go, if it's going to the east, has to go through Indonesia. There's a couple of very serious straits, which is why India has an ability to choke off China if they decide to do that. China has done in a global scale what Iran has done in a regional scale, meaning look at us, we're big, we're strong, we can take you on, we can do this, we can do this. And basically a lot of people are thinking that what China is how do you say, imaging is much more than they actually are. And they're planning on achieving diplomat, what they're doing with the Philippines. We'll push the Philippines and see if they push back, which is basically what the Iranians did with Israel. Okay? And they are in a very precarious situation, just like Iran is in a very precarious situation, because just like they can close the Straits of Hormuz, somebody else can. They are behind on narrow strait. Their economy is behind that. So China has been bolstering, pushing, making himself bigger, making the dragon longer than it actually is.
That you're dead on. Yep.
And what happened this week is the United States of America, I'm going to say the man, said we're not going to back down to the bullies.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to call your bluff. We're going to, if you're going to make yourself more than you are, okay, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
And they smashed Iran. Trump smashed Iran together with Israel. And basically what China is realizing, if I say that I'm this big, even though I'm only this big, if the imagery doesn't work, if my shadow doesn't scare everybody, then I'm much smaller than I actually am. And I think China has realized, the world has realized, China and Russia have realized that Trump will call bluffs.
Yeah, and I think that's why we go back to the statement by Medvedev. The statement that he made was something that was hugely erroneous. Can I give you an example of this? Okay? The president himself responded to the former president of Russia's statement.
Putin?
No, not Putin. The former president.
Okay.
Medvedev. I always screw up his pronunciation. But look at what the president says. I'm going to just read this. This is hilarious. Okay? And I made a video on this, by the way, that's getting released on Friday about this particular subject. He said, "Did I hear former President Medvedev. That's what it is. Medvedev. Thank you. Yeah, Medvedev. Did I hear former President Medvedev? Did I hear former President Medvedev from? I don't know. I'm having a brain freeze. Okay. Anyway, from Russia, casually throw around the N-word.
Yeah.
And he says nuclear. He says, and saying that he and other countries would supply nuclear warheads to Iran. Did he really say that? Or is it just a figment of my imagination? This is the president writing. If he did say that, and if confirmed, please let me know immediately. The N-word should not be treated so casually. I guess that's why Putin's the boss. By the way, if anyone thinks our hardware was great over the weekend, far and away the strongest and best equipment we have, 20 years advance over the pack, is our nuclear submarines. By the way, he mentions nuclear submarines because nuclear submarines stand to be the greatest threat to Russia or anybody in Northern or Central Asia. That's why he's bringing up nuclear submarines, okay? So he says, they are the most powerful and lethal weapons ever built and just launched the 30 Tomahawks. All 30 hit their mark perfectly. So in addition to our great fighter pilots, thank you to the captain and crew. Okay. All that did when which I believe he is right now the equivalent of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. That's the position that man has. Medvedev, whatever. I keep messing it up.
Medvedev.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, very similar to what the security minister does in Israel, and not quite what Pete Hegseth does here in the United States. Anyway, all he did in essence was simply signal the fact that things are not what they seem, nor will they ever be.
True. Okay, but again, I can't help making the correlation between the bully tactic that Iran was using and has just now been called on, and the bully tactic that China is using that they haven't been called on yet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I think this is going to be a major thing. Did you hear what NATO said?
I did not hear any statements
Okay, so
released by NATO,
yesterday-
although
well, it
NATO
wasn't a statement.
statements are just completely ridiculous.
No, there was a NATO meeting, I think, yesterday. Where
Guys, I know how to pronounce Medvedev, okay? I just had a brain fart. Oh, my goodness. I actually do speak some Russian, folks, okay?
I do
All
not.
right, anyway.
I do not. But anyway, one of the NATO chiefs wrote a note to President Trump saying, "Thank you for doing what nobody else has done for the last 20 years."
Oh, yeah, that doesn't surprise that he would get a note. That
no,
surprised
but
me
he
would
got
get
a
note
lot
like
of
that.
flack for doing it.
Yeah.
But he's saying everybody knows, everybody doesn't talk about it, but everybody knows that this needed to be done. So what I'm trying to say is that the posturing, the bully tactic, the Black Knight, if we've talked about the Black Knight from Monty Python tactic, okay? The Black Knight tactic that has been used by China, has been used by Iran. By the way, has been used by the Hezbollah. I don't know. I just now saw some of the old movies where Nasrallah is calling Israel a web of spiders, a spider web. Okay,
Him
And
of all people.
now the spiders are crawling through his whatever. But okay. But what I'm trying to say, that posturing tactic that worked very well in a world where imagery was more important than reality. And that's what has been happening. Iran was using the imagery. Iran was using
That's
that
right. Yeah.
tactic.
Yeah.
Iran was saying, "Look at us. We're big. We're strong. We're a threat. You got to be careful." And look at, even after losing the war, they're still playing in this game. What President Trump did is he used the truth knife to cut through the imagery and said, "Okay, let's see how big and strong you are."
Yeah.
And I think China's looking at that from the side and saying, "Ooh, if he does that to us, we're going to have a serious problem."
Oh, yeah. And I think, look, one of the Philippines are happy right now with Trump, okay?
The Japanese.
Taiwan is happy. The Japanese are happy. South Korea is very happy.
Yep.
Okay? There's a lot of people that are very happy with what Trump demonstrated. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't recognize. If you really analyze it the way it's supposed to be analyzed, what we did in Iran was something that those bunker busters that we have were designed for. Like, we had Iran in mind when we designed those 20 years ago. People don't think that. There are lots of warmongers throughout the generations that always built these weapons and designed these weapons based on targets they knew they would hit one day. So these underground nuclear facilities is exactly what we had in mind when these ordinances were built.
Well, again, let's go back. Asymmetric warfare, when the weaker adversary is not on par with you in capabilities and technologies, they go underground.
100%.
And look, Afghanistan, they were dealing with underground facilities. Pakistan, they were dealing with underground facilities. I mean, go back to World War II. I mean, when the Japanese were fighting on Iwo Jima, okay, what did they do? They went underground, and we had to go underground and root them out. I mean, basically the same idea. So going underground, look what Hamas did. Look what Hezbollah did. And basically what Trump, and by the way, Israel too, don't forget what Israel did to Hamas and what Israel did to Hezbollah. What Israel did to Hezbollah is a textbook of taking down the bully.
People will be studying those operations for the next 30 years. They'll also be studying the operations that Israel did with Iran over the next 30 years. We have never seen aerial force being used the way it's been used with such little interference, especially in areas and territories that have the presence of S-300 batteries. It's what Israel did was remarkable.
Okay, from a technological point of view, everybody is kind of applauding the Ukrainians that are standing up to the Russians with the use of asymmetric technologies, basically. And the Russians don't know how to deal with them. By the way, part of the thing, the Russian was buying up drones from Iran.
Yes.
Okay, look what happened to the Iranian drone factories. The Iranian, I mean, that's been completely finished off. Israel, by the way, has become a military technology powerhouse. Have we mentioned what they did at the Paris air show?
Oh, wasn't that crazy?
To Israel.
You should probably talk about that because, and by the way, isn't it hilarious that they exclude Israel from the air show and the air show just became a violent disaster? Did you hear some of the things that have happened over there?
A couple of crashes.
Oh my goodness!
Well, there's always been crashes. I actually saw
no actual people.
No, I did not know that.
Just they something like, I mean, they arrested something like 600 people that were just raising havoc during the air show.
So the Paris Air Show is the biggest fair exhibition of military technology in the world. I've been there. I remember when I was with the ambassador in Paris, I went to the Paris Air Show a couple of times. Very, very interesting. And here's the thing. Everything was ready for the Paris Air Show, and then the government of France decided not to allow the Israelis to exhibit their military capabilities at the Paris Air Show. The booths were already there, so they kind of blacked them out, put covering on them, and said Israel cannot be a representative at the Paris Air Show because they are using their technologies in a non-positive manner. So they blackened out and they didn't allow Israel to exhibit at the Paris Air Show. Now, the main reason we understand is because it's a competition. And there are French military organizations. There's European military organizations, and if anybody needs to buy an anti-aircraft defense system or any kind of military technology, they buy from the Israelis. I mean, they thought that the Israelis had an unfair advantage because of the success of the war. Okay, they had an unfair advantage, so they didn't allow the Israeli military technology, military establishment to compete with the other ones.
And you wonder why France is such a cesspool.
Wait a minute, let me finish this. So somebody wouldn't put a poster on the wall of the Israeli booth that was blackened out or closed out and says, for political reasons, we're not allowed to exhibit our capabilities here, and we have moved the exhibit to downtown Tehran.
That's hilarious.
Amazing.
That's hilarious.
That was really, really weird that they managed to pull that one off. And
they kept that up there?
I don't know how long they kept it out. It came along the internet for a while there, but yes, if you want to see what our technologies can do, you are welcome to downtown Tehran.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, to make the long story short, what has happened here is, go back to your schoolyard, play yard, where there's a bully in the play yard, and he's been driving everybody crazy. He's been smacking everybody around. The Europeans have been smacked around by him. Everybody's smacking around. And then somebody stands up to the bully and smacks him back and knocks him on the ground. What that does is make everybody else feel safer.
Yeah.
But that also says to other bullies in the playground who are looking from the other side of the playground, it doesn't make sense to be a bully.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think, I mean, again, seeing what's going to happen, more than anything, that is the main dynamic that's going to come out of this event, of this Trump administration, and that's going to impact on China and everything around. And maybe we can go into it a little bit deeper if you want, because I believe that is also a spiritual thing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's a significant spiritual issue, which we need to revisit. And as a matter of fact, we'll probably revisit it near the end. But right before we take questions, we need to get into the problem of Gaza. Now, I want to just say where I'm concerned, okay? Because if this was yesterday at this time, I would say I would say that Bibi just needs to go full force forward. He needs to get it done quickly and be done. Now, I still feel the same way. But I think Bibi complicated the situation slightly. Not insanely, but slightly.
With that bomb.
With that bombing.
With that attack.
With that bombing that took place, because technically those 12 hours were designed to give them opportunities to wind down, not get in your last jabs. And although he stayed technically within the rules of the ceasefire, he probably could have gone without the last jabs.
The dynamic that I understand is happening in Gaza is like this. Trump had a plan for Gaza. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, sure.
Moving them out. The plan, he backed down from the plan because of the intense opposition of the moderate Arab nations that he wants to bring into the fold of the Abrahamic Accords. Mostly Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, Egypt held him back on this. We were saying yesterday that because of what has happened with Iran, Trump would have more weight, and the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Emirates would be more willing to accept things that they weren't willing to accept before because of the momentum inside Israel. And as you're saying, Israel might have lost that momentum because of that last event, and Trump will not support Israel as much as we thought he would. By the way, there are Palestinian representatives in Cairo right now going there for the talks. So they moved out there yesterday. So the talks on Gaza are going to resume.
Say that again, bro.
The Palestinian sent the Hamas sent representatives to Gaza to talk about. So they're trying to rekindle the negotiation in Gaza.
Yeah, but who? That's my question.
The Hamas people from Qatar.
Oh, the Qatar. Okay.
Which, by the way, a lot of Israelis say that they should die also.
Well, I mean, they're complicit war criminals.
I don't know. Can we say that here? Are we getting?
I mean, not to say that they're subject to, they're fair game. You know what I mean? I'm not calling for the death of anybody, but you know what I mean.
Well, I'm going to say this, and President Trump and Israel have been very clear about separating the civilian leadership from the military leadership. And we also hold a difference. I mean, you are a civilian leader and you are a military leader. They are looking for the new military leader. But to go back to what we said, yes, I think that there is going to be a dynamic where Trump says to Saudi Arabia, get used to it. I mean, you're going to have to agree to things that you didn't agree to before in the name of reaching some kind of an agreement. That might be the momentum that pulls us out of the Gaza hole. But there still is a lot of pushback. And here's another part. There was a lot of pushback against Bibi inside the Israeli political.
Right, which is kind of done.
Not even the political. There are a lot of people, the demonstrations about the hostages. A lot of people don't agree with continuing the fight in Gaza because they say that it jeopardizes the hostages.
Yeah, but we're at a problem. We're at an ugly boiling point now.
Yeah,
where the Shin Bet, if you really want to think about it, it is the Shin Bet and the old intelligentsia, the current one, that should really be blamed for what happened on October the 7th. I mean, the real people to blame are Hamas. But with all of that said and done, Bibi's going to have to get to the point where he sits down with all of the people of Israel and say, look, your best bet in us recovering these hostages is by the show of force. If we don't go in and if we don't deal with this, any chance of recovering any hostages are gone.
I think we do have a majority that holds to that position, but there still is a very big minority that doesn't. And again,
a loud minority.
Very loud and very big. I'm gonna be clear. And again, don't forget, this pushes personal buttons for us. Okay, this is not hostages somewhere else. I don't know if maybe I don't know how I pull out these Balagan connections from different places. Northern African slavery. I don't know if you know, there was a serious problem with Northern African slavery in the Mediterranean Sea. That
all Arab Muslims.
All Arab Muslims. But they were taking Christian women as slaves.
Oh, sure.
and filling up harems in Istanbul. By the way, Istanbul too, Northern Africa, all the Muslim countries had harems, and they really liked blonde Christian women. And it was only until that became a problem that Great Britain, decided to put the time, the energy, the money, and the lives into destroying the slave trade in Northern Africa. By the way, the United States of America became a part of that in the beginning too.
Yep.
But the United States of America only got into that when American women were being taken as slaves. And the whole shores of Tripoli and the whole idea of the American Marines was created in order to solve that slave problem in Northern Africa. What I'm trying to say is I think the world is at a point that we cannot allow this to continue to happen. We have to stand up and make sure that this doesn't happen anymore. And because what's happening in Israel is that we are realizing that if this is an evil that you can't reach an agreement with, you can't appease, you can't find a solution with.
That's right.
And the only way to deal with it is by storming the shores of Tripoli or storming Gaza and completely taking down Gaza. Now, the question in Gaza is, what's going to happen the day after? And that's been the main issue of Gaza that hasn't allowed anything to come together. Side note, I got to tell you about this, though. Have you watched this walk on Gaza that happened last week?
Oh, in Egypt. Yeah. But you know what? But come on, Habibi. We expected this.
Come on.
Those of us that look, I keep telling this to people all the time, and I have such a difficult time with why people continue to allow themselves to become subject matter experts simply because they have a large listening audience. Here's my thing, okay? I say it all the time. You don't know our people. You don't know our culture. You don't know our language. You don't know our way of thinking. And perhaps one of the greatest displays of that happened in Egypt, specifically in Lower Egypt. I'm telling you, the northern part of the country showed the whole world how ignorant, foolish, and stupid the West is. These people come in.
How many were there?
Oh gosh,
There were
hundreds.
No, I think there was 1,000.
Oh yeah,
more
I
than
mean it was a
1,000.
large group. It was hundreds, if not thousands.
Let's explain. Do a quick explanation.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Okay,
Habibi. Go ahead.
I don't know if you watched the Greta Thunberg flotilla that tried to break the siege of Gaza, and a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 Europeans and different places decided that they were going to buy a ticket to Cairo, get on a bus in Cairo, take a bus up to the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula, get off the bus, and just walk towards the wall between Egypt and Gaza and break the blockade to Gaza. And these nice, how do you say, Scottish accented, Welsh looking,
Monkeys.
Irish pink haired people. We're going to walk across the desert and come and save Gaza with the power of love and the rule. And the Egyptians were
Beat them up.
The Egyptians were not having it.
The Egyptians stopped them. The Egyptians beat them up. And I keep trying to explain this to people. My mom and my dad were both born and raised in Egypt. Listen, I am not an identity politics person. I do not think that moral authority is based on immutable characteristics. That's hogwash, okay? But I do have some understanding of the culture I was raised in. And I'm telling you, Gaza used to belong to Egypt. When Egypt let go of Gaza, it was for them a wonderful thing. It ended up becoming a blessing. Why? Because Egypt, as we found out during the Arab Spring, does not want Islamic Brotherhood in the country. The hatred for those that are representative by Islamic Brotherhood was deeply embedded within Egyptians during the time of Sadat being assassinated. People don't get that. We're talking about early 80s. Egyptians have not liked them. So when you think you're going to run through and free Palestine, we're going to deliver Gaza, blah, blah, blah. Well, listen, they messed around and found out, David, right? They messed around and found out.
And it was really, really funny to watch. I mean, literally these nice, well-dressed Europeans yelling at the Egyptians, "It's not fair. We just want to go to Gaza. We just want to save the Palestinian people. Don't you want to save the Palestinian people?" Blah, 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 blah.
كلهم you know what? I almost said something crazy in Arabic right now. I almost did it, but we're being recorded, so I'm not going to say it. But I almost got a little crazy right there.
Okay, how did we get to this? Reality has been, how do you say, poking through the mist lately, and I think this is part of what happened with the whole Iran thing, with the whole Gaza thing, and we're going to have to see how this kind of plays out.
Yeah. I think that we do have a new battle that has just begun, because Gaza is the only place right now that seems to be the area where Israel continues to drag its feet.
Mm-hmm.
They were quick, decisive, effective with Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They were quick, effective, decisive with all of the Iranian proxies that were in the area, specifically the ones that were embedded within Syria on the Golan Heights side of Syria. They were swift and aggressive with Iran, but they seem to continue to drag their feet with Gaza. And my thinking behind it is, listen, I get it. But Bibi knows it. The world knows it. We've seen it. The only time we've ever made leeway with the hostages is when shows of force have been put in. It's the only language that Arabs understand.
Don't you find it fascinating that Iran's been stepped on? Iran has been put in its place.
I mean, look, me personally, I don't look at it that way. I mean, I know that a lot of people say, "Oh, paper tiger," or "this is amazing," or "this is..." Look, to me, maybe I'm not looking at it the way that a lot of people do, because I'm looking at it through the eyes of the people of Iran instead of the eyes of Khamenei. I'm looking at it from the eyes of a group of people who have literally been held hostage for the better part of 50 years.
Yeah.
So because the one thing that people forget is prior to 1979, Iran was close to Israel.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you say prior to 1950, Iran was on an upscale trajectory. If you think about it, when we got into the 1950s, Iran was beginning to nationalize their oil. When that happened, had they been allowed to get away with that, you would have seen a completely different country right now.
If they had overthrown the Shah in a different direction and not gone down the fanatical Muslim.
I mean, it would have been such a it would have been such a different world. It would have been such a different world. Iran already had somewhat of a democratic approach to what they were doing, and it fit well within the Semitic culture. It worked well, but we instituted that regime change when we put in the Shah, for lack of a better term, in the 1950s.
Well, we were doing that all over the place. I mean, look at
what
they were doing in the Philippines.
Of course.
Look at what the U.S. The CIA was setting up regimes all over the place and all over the world, and that is just another one.
It was demonic. It's a part of our country that I will never be happy about, that I'll never be proud of, that I'll always be saddened by, even though I still think, with everything said and done, we still live in the greatest country in the world. I mean, I'm not gonna debate that, right? But with all that said, we may be the greatest country in the world, but we are not the country that God gave His promise to. Israel is.
Which brings me to something that has been racking my brain or tickling my soul, or call it whatever you want. the fall of the Shiite axis in the Middle East, I think, is indicative of something a little bit deeper, and I'm going to call it. And again, this is me just trying to verbalize what I'm feeling. I'm calling it the Genesis 12 factor.
It is the Genesis 12 factor.
And let's see if I can explain how this is working and how it seems to me to be very, very indicative of the truth of the Bible. Okay, and here's how it happens. When Israel returns to its ancestral homeland, it's a fulfillment of prophecy. It's a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. The world should have stood up and applauded. A lot of it did, but the Arab world should have said, okay, let's take this Israel and let's take everything that Israel is, let's take everything that the Jewish people are, and let's be a part of this. And by the way, a lot of them did. I don't know if you know that the population in what is today called Israel, what was then called Palestine, grew because Arabs saw the prosperity that the Jews were bringing to the land when they started coming back. And they moved in from Egypt, from Jordan, from Sudan, in order to be a part of that prosperity. And what I'm trying to say is the Arab world in the beginning decided to hate Israel.
Yeah.
Decided to hate the existence of Israel. And Genesis 12 says what's going to happen to those who hate Israel. So the War of Independence was fought because of their hatred of the Jews. It's not that they wanted a nation. The Palestinians had never had a nation, never wanted a nation. They wanted the Jews not to have a nation.
Yep.
So their hatred of the Jews, and look what happened in 1948. They lost the War of Independence. It's called the tragedy for them. Their hatred blinded them so much that they couldn't even fight a war against a Nakba, the tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Some of the Arabs living in the land decided to give up on their hatred of the Jews and live with the Jews inside Israel. Those are the Israeli Arabs, and they are very, very prosperous.
Yes, that's right.
If you get yourself on the side of the blessing, you will be blessed.
Yes.
But a lot of the Arabs decided not to, so more wars were fought. 1967, 1973. But then both Egypt and Jordan, for all kinds of, we call them political reasons, I want to say the spiritual reasons, decided to give up on their hatred of the destruction of the Jews. And they have a peace agreement with Israel and have had relative peace ever since.
Yep.
Look at the Jordanians, look at the Egyptians. Okay? The Palestinians didn't want to give up on their hatred for the Jews, and you have one intifada, you have another intifada, and it didn't get them anywhere. When they gave up on killing Jews, when the PLO, when Yasser Arafat said, I don't want to kill them, I just want to die, no, they didn't really give up. But even saying, I'm willing to be a part, then their situation became much, much better. They're in a much better situation in Ramallah than they are in Gaza. Gaza never gave up on the hatred of the Jews. The Gazan people never gave up on the hatred.
Do you think in Ramallah they've given up on that?
Not completely, but at least outwardly. Let me continue this, though. The Arab world on the whole is not really giving up, but is really, I'm not going to say blessing the Jews, but is not cursing the Jews. Look at Saudi Arabia, look at the Gulf states. They're not cursing the Jews as much, and they're starting to say we can get into the blessing. Who held out as the Jew hater, who turned the Jew hater into a part of its flag, turned the Jew hating into part of its policy? It's the Shiite axis led by Iran.
Yeah, but again, and this is something that we have to talk about, and that's why the Shiites are very, very, very much hated by the Sunnis. The Shiites have a very violent view. The Sunnis do too, but the Shiites have a very violent view that is eschatologically driven, that causes them to act in ways that are completely irrational and make absolutely no sense to the Western mind.
I want to finish this line before we go into that because I want to get this. I heard somebody talking on Israeli TV yesterday, and he said this, and again, this is a secular Israeli. He said, the more they hate us, the more they get smacked down.
Yeah.
basically. And Iran is the final aspect. Now, the Jews and the Israelis are seeing this. They're seeing that the hatred of the Jews is more than just a geopolitical issue. It's even more than a religious. They're starting to understand it's a spiritual issue. And what I'm trying to say to everybody watching us, when you hate the Jews, you will pay the price.
No, it's and look, the Bible told us that. This is the part that people don't understand. God chose in the scriptures to remove every last bit of ambiguity as it relates to his stand with his people Israel. He's removed every last bit of ambiguity. He told us in Jeremiah, he said, look at the sun, the moon, and the stars. As long as those ordinances are in the sky, I will not forsake my people Israel. I don't know what it's going to take to get in people's heads that it does not work the way that they're being fed it does. If you look at the problem with the Shiites, is they believe that their eschatological view drives what will become eventually the great reward that they're achieving. But what they don't realize is the eschatological views that they have is at best a heretical teaching that comes from Judeo-Christian prophetic utterances, which is designed to destroy those who embrace it. If you look at the discussion about the 12th Imam, and you hear their views on what they call the second coming, if you listen to the things that they say, it sounds like somebody read biblical prophecy, Bible prophecy, and basically heretically taught it in a way to meet their own David Koresh-like conclusions. I don't think that people understand that. I should play for you the video of the Mufti, the former Mufti of Egypt, the Grand Mufti from Egypt. Listen to what he is considered to be a part of the Sunni world, and he is talking about Gog Magog and Bible prophecy through the eyes of what sounds like a Shiite, like an imam.
But I love the fact that the Arab world, the Muslim world, is starting to understand this, whether in a direct manner or in an indirect manner. And don't get me wrong, Saudis don't have a great love for Israel. Jordanians and Egyptians don't have a great love for Israel.
Matter of fact, I'm going to find that Mufti video.
Okay.
By the way.
But they have a respect for the fact that if you curse Israel, you will be cursed. I mean, they're going through the donkey configuration right now about cursing and blessing Israel. But I wanted to get to something else. And James, tell me what you think about this.
Yes, sir.
I am seeing hatred of Israel rise up inside places that it wasn't there before. I'm talking about the conservative right wing in the United States.
It's a huge problem. And as a matter of fact, the video that I released today, I actually named I named some examples of these conservative right-wing people talking nonsense about Israel. And I basically shared the truth about what's really happening. The lies that they're communicating and what's really happening. Yeah, that he's one of them. Dave Smith.
Dave Smith.
Yeah.
By the way, nice Jew. Nice Jewish boy.
Is he actually Jewish?
I think so.
That's a shame. So he's joined the Palestinian crowd like Chuck Schumer.
By the way, who was it that said? I heard somebody saying that the main problem that Israel has in the United States is Jews who are anti-Israel.
That may be partially true.
They're saying. I mean, George Soros.
Yeah.
Nice Jew. But what I'm trying to say is this, and maybe in order to dynamic or connect it to what I believe is happening. Look at the Middle East. You're going to see what happens to those who curse Israel. If you have people that you know, people even in your family who are cursing Israel, remember that is a threat to those people.
Right.
take that in consideration. If people that you care about and love are being part of this dynamic of hating and cursing Israel, there are repercussions for this. And again, you're seeing it again and again in the world. And just like we need to pray for the salvation of the people that we love, you have to pray for I'm going to say, the blessing of Israel to be on the people that you love too.
Right.
And I've been getting, family members who are saying terrible things about Israel. And that is a problem. People tend to think, oh, that's just another opinion. No, that is not just another opinion. You actually move into the realm of messing with God's promise.
That's right.
And people who do are putting themselves in harm's way in a big way.
That's right.
In a big factor. And I think we tend to say, okay, these people have just this different idea. They have this just different opinion. And I mean, what do you want? The Iranians think that Israel should be destroyed. Israel thinks that Iran should be destroyed. No, it's not the same. And you can't make a moral equivalency between the two. And the people who do are going to get on the railroad tracks of God's plan and are taking, the danger of being hit by the train as it comes through.
Yeah. And I'm going to play this video. I have to change one aspect of this so that we both are on. Okay. I'm going to play this video. By the way, we do have people that oftentimes get upset when they see me looking around and looking at other ways while you're talking.
Really?
Yeah. I just want everybody to understand that I have to run the studio. So when I'm looking around, I'm not disinterested in what David's saying. I'm just having to run a bunch of other things. As a matter of fact, while David was talking right now, I was listening to every word, but I was looking for this video. And I'm going to show you another video as well that's going to prove the point. By the way, the translation here is almost exact. The translation is remarkable.
Okay.
Okay? Listen to the Grand Mufti speaking.
This is a Grand Mufti of Egypt.
Egypt.
And now explain, it's like the head bishop of Israel?
Kind of. It's, boy, that's a whole, you know what? I did a video explaining this hierarchy. I released that video last year. I want to say it was the spiritual hierarchy of Islam, I think is what I named it. I spent a lot of time explaining that. But
okay,
watch this. You're going to have to read the subtitles. But there are certain points where I'm going to stop because I want people to understand the significance that you don't see because of the language barrier. But listen to this. It's very, very heavy. Oh, let me turn on the audio here. Okay, here we go.
زوال الكيان الصهيوني لا نعرف ما الذي يحدث بعده. اليهود وإسرائيل والكيان الصهيوني لا يساوي عند الله وعند الناس.
He said, I want everybody to catch this. The Jews, all of the people, not just the people living in Israel, it's everybody. They're not even worth the value of the wing of a bug. Not even worth the value of a wing of a bug. Think about that for a second. And it's funny. Allah. It's crazy what he's saying.
جناح بعوضة. تخيل معي تخيل سياسي أن إسرائيل زالت فما الذي سيكون؟ تدخل أمريكا فوراً.
تدخل أمريكا فوراً. Just so you know, the idea that he's basically saying is, if Israel is destroyed, America will come into the picture, will step in and take its place, which may be a bigger problem than the first. Is what he's basically implying. And notice what he says here. He's about to say this. He says, I'll play it. But this is amazing when he starts talking about throwing Israel into the sea. By the way, just so you know, when you hear min bahr shahr, you're talking about from the river to the sea.
Yep. The
that
Arabs have
means
been
throwing
talking
them in the
about-
water.
The Arabs have been talking about throwing Israel into the sea for years.
Yep. But listen to him.
انت فاكر ان اسرائيل دي لما هنرميها في البحر خلاص
It's such a if you people understand Arabic, I'm sorry, I won't interrupt it as much anymore. Maybe I will. But he says irmiya for bahr. Like like it's so vulgar. He's basically saying not like we're gonna push people into the river or into the sea. He says we're throwing them away like trash in the beach. Like this would be the term that you would use if you were throwing trash away. It's terrible.
خلصت الحكاية تدخل أمريكا فور وفي الحديث إنكم تقاتلون الروم اللي هم الأمريكان دول طب وإذا دخلت أمريكا
By the way, he's not saying that the Americans are the Byzantines. He's making it very clear by what he's saying in the language.
Infidels.
That the Americans are the Byzantines of today. That's what he's basically saying. Anyway.
Room. Why is it room?
Huh?
Why is it room?
It's again, he's using derogatory terminology, and it's just crazy. It's just so crazy. Okay, here we go.
خلاص إسرائيل خلصت هيحصل إيه؟ تدخل روسيا فورا.
Russia will come in.
وروسيا دول اللي هم مين؟
Gog
اللي هم
وماجوج.
يأجوج ومأجوج.
You hear that? Gog and Magog.
قبائل في أرمينيا موجودة ومعروفة
In the books.
وعارفينها وكل حاجة معروفة وموجودة مكتوب.
By the way, he says Mawguda Maktub because he doesn't want to refer to El Qutab.
The Bible.
Yeah. He's saying that this is something that's been written about by everybody.
It's in the books.
It's in the books. All of the
say Bible.
hadith, all of that. I'm telling you, he's speaking like he is
Knowledgeable.
inspired by Iran.
Hmm.
But he's speaking heresy of biblical prophecy. Listen to this.
فتخيل أن أن الأمريكان والروس دخلوا لك هنا هتعمل إيه؟ هتقاتلهم أرضك بلدي ولذلك فهذا أمر يحتاج إلى تدخل إلهي مباشر.
Tadakhul ilahi. Ilahi is the same term that Jesus used in reference to the Father, by the way. So he says there has to be intervention from God to deal with these people. But listen to what he goes on to say.
فأنبأنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن التدخل سيحدث وأن عيسى ابن مريم سينزل.
By the way, isn't it funny when he says Isa? Okay, they say Jesus a slightly different way, but he is talking about Jesus in their end times doctrine.
Yeah.
That's why I say Islam is originated
Perversion.
as a heretical teaching of Christianity.
Jesus, the son of Mary.
That's what he's saying. Jesus, the son of Mary, will descend. Listen to what he says. Continue.
فيقضي على يأجوج ومأجوج دول وينتصر المسلمون على الروم.
Okay, did you notice? God is going to come down. He's going to destroy Gog and Magog. The guy is twisting Ezekiel 38.
Yep.
Continue. This is amazing. Listen to what he continues to say.
بس بتدخل إلهي بقى.
But this requires divine intervention.
Whoa, James.
So think about the parallels here. God is going to come one day and destroy the enemies of Israel when the enemies of Israel attack them, per Ezekiel 38 and 39. He's saying now, no, God is going to attack the enemies of Allah.
And then the Muslims are going to be victorious.
And Jesus will be a part of that, by the way.
According to them, yes.
Who is a Jew?
Is that a question or a statement?
No, I mean that's the thing that's hilarious. But this is the kind of heretical doctrine that they teach. And by the way, the Islamic world has a series of different views that influence their conclusions like this. I'll show you another one that I'm going to find it right now. I'll show you another one that I've shown a lot of people, and it shocked them when they've seen it. I don't know why it shocked them, because the reality of it is this is the world in Saudi Arabia.
I've seen this guy before. He
Watch
was in
this
Israel,
guy.
by the way.
Yeah, well, he's kind of a famous blogger in Saudi Arabia. And by the way, the royal family lets him do whatever he wants. Listen to what he says about Palestinians. Watch this. And by the way, his language is strong, you guys. Like, honestly, it's super strong. There are certain words that I had to look up because they were never spoken in my household. Okay, watch this. This is what, watch this. Oh, hold on. By the way, I will say this. I think the guy is very articulate. Okay, listen to what he says.
ما السعودية ما بقى شيء ما أعطتكم إياه، حتى دولة أسست لكم دولة، الملك فهد. يوم ريغان يطلب منه تمويل زوار الكونترا قال له وحدة بوحدة أبي دولة لفلسطين، قال له أبشر، ووقع الخطاب دولة لفلسطين، وعلم الملك فهد عرفات إنه حصلنا دولة فلسطينية. هرب عرفات ما شافوه إلا بعد 10 سنين من هالكلام هذا. هرب ما يبي دولة فلسطينية. كلكم ما تبون دولة فلسطينية لأن أساسا ما لكم قضية ولا لكم دولة ولا لكم أرض. هذه أرض إسرائيل بالقرآن. وأنتم
None of you want a Palestinian state.
belongs
That's
to
what he
Israel.
says. And he says even the Quran says that this belongs to Israel.
Yep.
That's what he's saying. Look what he goes on to say. This is harsh.
شتات رومان ملفقين مغول وتركمان وشركس وأرمن وغجر. ما لكم حق بفلسطين.
You're not even Arabs, is what he's saying.
إسرائيلية لبني إسرائيل. وبني إسرائيل لمعلوميتكم، بني إسرائيل هذول عيال إسحاق، وحنا يا العرب عيال إسماعيل وإسحاق.
So he's saying we as Arabs, we're the sons of Ishmael. And he says the Israelis are the sons of Isaac. Isaac and Ishmael are brothers. That makes us cousins. You're nobody. You're just a bunch of leftovers. Look what he says. Look, this is a guy, famous guy, by the way, in Saudi Arabia. Very famous guy. Listen to him.
وإسماعيل أخوين أبوهم إبراهيم عليه السلام. يعني هذول عيال عمنا، لكن أنتم منين جيتوا؟ أنتم وش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ أنتم يا الشتات يا الغجر يا المغول يا التركمان يا الشركس يا الرومان يا بقايا الشعوب. إيش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ إيش دخلكم بالسالفة؟ إيش دخلكم بيننا؟ هذا بني إسرائيل على أرضهم. ما لكم أرض أنتم ولا لكم قضية يا جماعة. أنتم أدوختونا واشغلتونا. والأقصى الأقصى لمعلوميتك ما عندكم أقصى. ما في شيء اسمه أقصى، في شيء اسمه القدس. المسجد الأقصى اللي ورد ذكره هو بالجعرانة 29 كيلو على الطائف. وكان المسجدين المسجد الأقصى والمسجد الأدنى. المسجد الأقصى حقكم بناه الشام عام 72 هجري. كيف يسرى محمد له وهو مبني عام 72 للهجرة؟ يعني بعد وفاة محمد ب60 سنة. تضحكون على مين أنتم؟ تضحكون على مين؟ الفلسطيني أنت ما أنت عربي ولا لك أرض ولا لك
so harsh.
أرض إسرائيل، والقضية قضية إسرائيل معكم. كان إسحاق شامير ورابين وشارون وجولدا مائير والثاني والله ما ادري شو اسمه.
He's naming prime ministers of Israel.
تدري ولا لا؟ لكن نتنياهو جبان. لأن نتنياهو ما حرككم، ما ادري وش يبي بهالأسلحة مكدسها عنده.
I mean, do you believe how strong he says Netanyahu is a coward because he should have burned all of you people. Look what he goes on to say.
نتنياهو أحرق هالعصابات هذه وهالشتات وهالملفقين وريح نفسك وريح العالم منهم وريحنا احنا منهم. ريحنا
منهم. Meaning relieve us of the burden of the Palestinians. That's what he's telling Netanyahu to do. Relieve us of the burden of the Palestinians. That's how harsh this statement is.
ليش فتح لهم الحدود يهاجرون؟ راحوا للأردن سووا ويلول الأسود، وراحوا للكويت انهبوه يوم صدام احتله، انهبوا يلبسون لبس الجيش العراقي وينهبوه. الخسة والنذالة والحقارة ما يتركونها، هذه تربيتهم وهذا دمهم وهذا عرقهم. ليش ما تريح العالم منهم يا نتنياهو إذا أنت رجال وبطل؟ ها؟ الله يلعنكم ويلعن حتى نتنياهو اللي ما خلصنا منكم. لأن نتنياهو تارك لكم الحبل على الغارب. والمفروض نتنياهو هو اللي يأدبكم وهو اللي يخلص العالم من شروركم.
It's very harsh words.
دولة تحطون فيها يا الفلسطينيين. شر منزل ولا بكم رجل. أنا مستعد أنام عند يهودي ولا أنام عند فلسطيني. أنا مستعد أقلط يهودي في بيتي وأغديه وأوكله وأشربه وأرقده ولا أدخل فلسطيني في بيتي.
So he's basically saying, if you're a Jew, you could come into my house. I'll feed you. I'll take care of you. I'll clothe you. I'll let you sleep. I will host you. I won't even let you near my house if you're a Palestinian.
By the way, a lot of Arabs believe this about the Palestinians, but let's not forget they still see the Palestinians as their brothers.
Well, kind of. This guy's saying no. A lot of people in Saudi Arabia are saying no.
Well, we're hoping that many more will reach that
And
conclusion.
in Egypt, they're also doing that. But listen to this. Listen to what he says at the end. This is heavy.
والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Oh, so I guess we missed the last part of that. But I'm telling you, this kind of stuff, I do not know why people have such a hard time understanding this.
So, what's going to happen now in Gaza? That's the main question we're all asking.
That is the big issue.
That's the question, and that's going to be. I keep on saying it's going to be solved. It's got to be solved soon. I don't know. I'm not sure. We might be stuck in this in between.
Bibi has to put himself in a position where it's a one and done. There's no ceasefire right now in Gaza. There's nothing preventing him from going in and getting this done. He can do this if he wanted to in a 3 to 5 day campaign.
No, it's more.
Okay, explain this to me, because what I'm hearing is that if he puts the full force of the IDF into Gaza, he could get it done in 3 to 5 days.
We are being very careful, one, because of the hostages. Okay, we don't know where they are. And two, we don't need any more dead soldiers. And it is a very hostile environment.
Okay, fine. So you don't need any more dead soldiers, so now you're going to have dead Jews for the next 10 years.
But they're doing it carefully. They're saying, I heard Zamil said that it would probably take about 2 weeks to completely conquer Gaza if we decided to do it.
Then why don't they just get it done?
Oh, I don't know.
14 days goes by very quickly.
I don't know. And again, Israeli politics are more complicated than most people understand.
But my only reason for doing this, I don't want to sound like a war hawk. I don't want to sound like somebody who just wants to see, unmitigated violence take place. My whole reason for saying this is this has the potential to carry on for 10 years.
It's carried on for much longer than that. I mean, we've had a Gaza issue. We've had a Gaza issue ever since 1967.
No, I get that. But this goes well beyond what it's become.
So do you think they're going to pull it off? Do you think Bibi's going to go in?
I think Bibi has to.
I'm not sure it's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see.
He has so much political capital right now that I think he will take advantage of the opportunity and get it over with.
Let's ask that question next week and see what's happening.
Yeah. Look, I know that there are people in the chat, and I understand it, right, that are saying you can't just rush into this like a crash dummy. And I don't think that's an unintelligent statement to make. I think that's a wise observation. So I'm not going to put that down. But the one thing that I will say is that this isn't like they're rushing in.
No.
David, this is something that they've been gathering intelligence over since even before Ariel Sharon.
Yeah, that is true. But again, the situation, and I've talked to some of the guys who are in there, every house you go into, there's a picture of the mosque, and there's weapons in every single house.
100%.
Every single house.
And Israel has been learning how to deal with this for the longest time, but won't do it because of political reasons.
You know how they're fighting the war in Gaza right now? They're flattening neighborhoods.
Say again?
They're flattening neighborhoods.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I get that. But this is, look, This is beyond a death cult.
Yeah.
These are people that are finding pleasure in killing their own children. And I'm not calling for unmitigated destruction.
I get it. Let's see if Bibi now has the weight to do it. Now, if Israel has the weight to do it, what we didn't think that we could do before.
My thing is this. Israel will lose the gains that it made, at least at a certain level, if they don't deal with the leftovers from what all of these Iranian militias have brought into play. I think that you can't cut the head of the snake off and then not deal with all the little babies running around biting everybody.
I think we're doing that. And again, the main thing is Gaza now, and we'll have to wait to see how that works out.
Okay,
I
David,
agree.
let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it? I think I already know what you're going to say.
I'd say I'd conquer Gaza, turn it into an Israeli military occupation, and put everybody through a filter, see who Hamas is, and then decide what to do.
I so agree with you.
But
I
here's
think
the
that's
problem.
super
What
smart.
would you do if your brother was in the tunnel there? Would you say the same?
Yeah, no, I get it.
No, answer me. James, would you say the same if your brother was in the tunnel?
At this point, knowing that he was probably dead,
No, we don't know he's dead. There's been pictures of him that have been published. This is how Hamas works. The pictures of him were published. Would you say the same if he
I'll
was
tell
in
you.
the
I'll
tunnel?
tell you what I would do. I would not stop at anything to get him back. I would. No, let me tell you something. I would use the whole world's military to get my brother or my son or my daughter out of there, which is why I personally would remove myself from that decision-making process, because I'm not in a position to be able to righteously say that.
And that is a huge, how do you say, self-maturity, but a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, and also, when we talk about this idea of children being killed, like, people get it out of your heads that Israel is the killer of these children. Get it out of your heads. This is not that. Okay, Hamas loves this. They feed off of this. Sinwar's whole plan was to purposefully murder Palestinian children. The whole infrastructure that he created was for the murder of children so that it could be used as a political propagandist mechanism.
Because he knew people on the other side of the world would sit and watch this and say, this is not right, and Israel is the problem. Again, we know that. By the way, you know who Sinwar and Nasrallah are meeting in hell right now.
They're not even meeting in hell. They're isolated. They're being judged by God in huge hell. But I know what you're saying.
Is Sinwar is I have to think that Khamenei is the supreme leader of Iran, saying that Sinwar ruined my whole arrangement here.
But Habibi, listen to me. Ismani shwaya, okay? Listen. You are, in my opinion, I've said this on multiple occasions, you're a brilliant military analyst. Here's my thing. Do you have a better chance getting those hostages back doing what Israel has been doing for the last year? Or do you have a better chance going in there, getting them back by going in there and sweeping the whole place?
Which means what? Loading Palestinians on trucks and sending them where?
No, I'm asking.
I'm asking.
You're providing the solution.
I'm a tank commander. I'm in downtown Rafah. I have now decimated all the buildings in this area. Now what do I do? Again, what do you do on the ground?
But that hasn't been the consideration that stopped Israel from going in there and dealing with what they have to deal with.
The hostages have. That's been the main issue.
I get the hostages issue. I get that. Okay,
so now let's say we conquer all of Gaza. Now there is a military commander in Rafah. There's a military commander in Gaza. There's a military commander in Khan Yunis. And now we have to arrange for food, water, and everything else. Okay? And we're going to do that. And it looks like that's what we're going to do. There's going to be no choice.
I mean, that's my point.
Fine. Now we did it. Now, Commander Yigal is the commander of Khan Yunis. Commander Moshe is the commander of Rafah. And the Palestinians are coming to us for food, water, trash disposal. We are now the government of Gaza. Now, there's still probably some of the hostages we haven't found. Now what happens? What is the final? And that's the main issue that everybody's been dealing with. What happens at that point? Let's say we conquer Gaza. Everything. Gaza is ours, just like it was until 2005. Now what happens? Do we get the hostages back?
You have a better chance of getting the hostages back because you have intelligence that tells you, gives you the best opportunity to be able to find them. You're not going to find them doing the bargaining thing.
Okay. So we're now, okay, and we'll get maybe some of them back, maybe not, and we'll be in control of Gaza like we were in control of Lebanon for probably about 15 years, and other. Again, my problem, my question, what everybody's asking in Israel, what Bibi's asking, what happens now that we have control of Gaza?
Yeah, but here's my problem with that question being asked. I'm serious. Like, I'm not trying to mess around, right?
All right.
It's too late to ask that question. You're already past the point of no return.
No, answer the question. We have conquered Gaza.
David.
I've put all of the divisions in Gaza.
David,
everybody's in Gaza.
Let me ask you this question. Is there any continuity of government, which I hate to even use the term government when it comes to Hamas? Is there any continuity of government right now within Hamas?
No.
Does Gaza have any political infrastructure at all?
No.
Is there any viability of any type of continuity that could exist that would provide the type of things that you're asking about? Is there any?
If we step up and go out.
The big fat answer is no. It's fatter than me.
All right.
So it's kind of ridiculous to say what happens next. The question is not what happens next. The question is, do you allow these terrorists who are acting on their own to make a bad situation worse? If Israel withdraws from Gaza, what happens to Gaza? Let's just say you could walk away from Gaza right now and put a massive wall and a canopy on it where they can't touch Israelis forever.
No, they will. They're going to try.
But let's just say they can't. Let's just say magically they can't do that.
All right.
They're all dead. They have nothing. They don't have infrastructure. They have nothing. They have nothing. It's done. It's gone. So to ask the question of what happens next is not even a viable question.
We are going to go back and to be a military occupation of Gaza again.
You don't have a choice. You have to.
I get it. I understand that. I hate it because I did it.
So do I.
I hate it because I did it. And I'm saying 30 years of military occupation of Gaza, 100 years of military occupation of Gaza.
The only way you avoid 30 years, 100 years, 50 years, even 5 years is you lean in on somebody like the President of the United States to orchestrate a deal in the Middle East, not with America.
With who?
With any of the participants who would want to normalize with Israel.
All right.
And you rebuild it. But you don't rebuild it under the circumstances for Palestinians by Palestinians.
Again,
you have to face the ugly reality that the Palestinians
can
no longer...
the Palestinians on trucks and sending them to Jordan.
Or wherever... Look, you have to take them and put them anywhere under one condition, that the country that receives them will be able to stand by the hard, fast rules of law and order that will prevent the kind of culture from amassing that has before. I'm talking about Muslim nations.
Again, is Egypt willing to do that?
No, Egypt is not willing to do that.
Is Jordan willing?
No, but wait, but you have to understand something here. Egypt's not willing to do it. Jordan's not willing to do it. Nobody is willing to do it. The Palestinians know that. They realize it. So the only other viable option is when the military comes in and does exactly what they're going to do, then they have to create a modern infrastructure that lends to massive law and order. You can be a Muslim, you can pray bi-isma Allah, you can go to your Quran, you can visit your mosques, you can do all of those things, but you are not allowed to go underground. You are not allowed to do these things. Israel's going to just have to do that. And by the way that Israel has to deal with this is not the way they've been dealing with it. Israel, this is where Israel has to go in and say, all of you international world, if you don't like what we're doing, which one of you will take them? And when they say no,
they say no.
When they say no, then Israel has to say, look, rest of the world, nobody wants to take them because nobody wants to deal with the nonsense that we're dealing with. And I understand the lies that they hide behind when they say, well, we want to give them the right to self-determination, blah, 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 blah.
They don't want the right to
self-determination. They're killing their own children.
They don't want the right to self-determination.
That's the point. That's the point. And what everybody is seeing right now in this time that me and you are getting together and having a pretty heated conversation relates directly to the problem that Israel is facing right now.
Great.
We are past the point of no return. That's the issue that everybody has to realize. We're past the point of no return. You tell me where, under any circumstance in Gaza, you can find even a small pocket of a group of Palestinians that are living in a model way.
Oh, no.
Nowhere.
Nothing. Gaza is done. It's finished.
Nowhere.
They have ruined Gaza.
Nowhere. And all Israel has done has demonstrated to the world one major thing, and that is they stink in the area of the media war. That's all they're good at everything else. Like, I wish that
How can we change that, James? How do we change that?
Israel needs to get a whole lot more aggressive, especially with its partners, in going out there and showing some of the Arab villages, some of the richest people in Israel are Arabs living in Arab villages.
Everybody who's been to Israel has seen that.
That's the point. These are things that we need to be yelling and screaming.
Okay, let's do it.
We're not, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These are the things, because listen, although I appreciate the idea, and I think it's like really, really important, although I appreciate deeply the idea that they are showing the heinous, barbaric murders by Hamas on Israeli people, we need to spend a whole lot more time showing what we're doing, what Israel is doing, for the Arab population in the rest of the world. We're not focusing on that. If Israel understood at a deeper level the need to tackle this on the media side, you might have a little bit more continuity in how they deal with things. The bigger problem that we have is that it's spiritual, and we know that in the last days, anti-Semitism is going to grow.
Yep.
So the bottom line is they're going to do what they're going to do.
I would say this, though. Again, if we're going back to what we talked about before, Israel has to solve the Gaza problem. It's going to be solved. Otherwise, Israel will not be at peace and quiet.
No. And that's my point. The only way Israel solves the Gaza problem is by tough love. It's the only way it gets solved. I associate it the same way I look at raising my little boy. I have 2 daughters and 1 son. One of the best things that I can tell my son and my daughters is no. I want this, I want that, I demand this, I want... No.
I think Israel's at a point where we realize, but here's the thing. Israel doesn't want responsibility for them.
The problem is they are in Israeli sovereign territory. So whether or not Israel wants responsibility for them, they have responsibility for them. And there's nothing they can do about that other than take responsibility.
Should we allow them to vote in the Israeli parliament?
I would argue that you could allow them to do so after there has been years of re-education.
So the re-education is the main issue. And again, what we're looking at, and again, we have seen places where this has worked. I mean, we're looking at Japan after World War II. How did that change? How was that change made? I mean,
it was in many ways the function of some sort of a dialogue-based mechanism.
and we need to find that function somehow. Meaning Israel needs to conquer completely, take over completely, military rule completely, and then somehow plug into some kind of Marshall Plan style dynamic.
Yes. And it has to be Israel, and I hate to say this, I absolutely hate to say this, with the other Arab nations. Not the Palestinian Authority. With the other Arab nations as a function of normalization. It has to happen.
Brings us to where we started this whole discussion. The Arab nations were not willing until now, but I think now after what's happened with Iran, there might be a greater willingness.
Oh, 100%.
And that is the positive aspect of all of this.
I think that Israel is facing perhaps the greatest and most golden opportunity. I think Israel is at the cusp of regional peace like we've never seen before. I know eventually it's going to go there because of Ezekiel 38.
Oh, yeah. Now, the question is, how soon is Trump going to be able to pull it off? That is the big question. And will he get to, did we talk about this yesterday? Will he get the Nobel Peace Prize?
No, I think you said that you believe he will. I don't know if they hate him. They hate him. There's no way. They'll give it to somebody else. They'll give it to Marco Rubio before they give it to him. I'm just telling you. But my whole point behind all of this is me and you are staring down the barrel of the same dilemma.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't give anybody a viable option if they're living in the midst of the fog of war.
Which is the main problem that we're having right now.
And that's why President Trump in his first meeting with Bibi at the White House said, the place isn't even livable. We're going to go make a new, Mar-a-Lago, whatever. I mean,
Mar-a-Lago on the Mediterranean.
Yeah, we're gonna rebuild Gaza. That's why he's saying it. Because I think that he offered that up knowing full well that everybody and their mama would reject it. But would eventually go back to that solution in realizing it may be the only viable option.
The only one that we have left. Do we want to take questions today?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take some questions. I know there's a bunch of people that aren't comfortable with heated dialogue, but this is how we do this, guys. This is Middle Eastern.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing what they're saying.
Do you know that David and I used to, when we would go get a burger close by to the church, this was before David was walking with the Lord, we would have very heated conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And every now and then people would come by and ask if everything was okay. Like, guys,
most people,
this is a Middle Eastern summit. You don't know how this works. Okay.
Did we freak everybody out today? I can't see.
I don't think so. I think people are used to this. I haven't seen any real back and forth regarding that. Okay.
Vindog said something before. I need to talk to him.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
What did he say?
I don't know. It just
Vinny's the man. I love Vinny. Okay, let me read some of these super chats, and then we'll get to some questions. David, you can see the questions up there?
I can't. That's my problem.
Okay. We'll get to some of them. But let me read some of these. Let me refresh this, and then I'll read some of these here. Here we go.
See if I can do it this way. Maybe I can get them on my phone. What is it?
Okay, here we go. Let me read a few of them. Okay, first of all, Brad, you better not get me in trouble, okay? You say yesterday the UN condemned the U.S. action against Iran. I tried to act surprised. I know better. Yesterday I said President Trump would win a Nobel the day Gal Gadot agreed to go to dinner with me. Let's just say I haven't made dinner reservations yet. Yeah, I don't blame you, brother. Mr. Red, you say customer of mine. Her name is Lucy. For short, she is Ukrainian and needs prayer. Her family has died in the war with Russia in recent years. Her nephew felt he needed to help Ukraine. He flew there and now is caught and surrendered to the Russians. Let's pray for that right now. Father, we pray for Lucy's family.
Wow.
We pray for that situation, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Bring your perfect peace to Lucy. Bring a miracle, Lord, for her nephew. We just pray, God, that you would end this war in Russia, Ukraine right now. So, Lord, we love you and thank you, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, listen, Brad, I agree with you. Brad says, Brother James, this news cycle has me worn out. I am as exhausted as Joe Biden at 4 p.m.
Oh.
I would agree.
Is he still alive?
Probably not. Brad also says, no telling what breaking news will happen during the show today, so thankful God is in control. Amen to that.
No missiles today.
No missiles. Thank you, Jesus. Mr. Red, I don't know about the ceasefire. Khamenei's heart is hard. And the Pharaoh in Exodus, when he didn't allow the Jews to walk. Khamenei can't stand the Jews being alive. That's true. Vinny, he says, I ran off and running for cover. The dog days of summer has just begun. Looking forward to seeing you and David in August, my brother. James, for life, Israel all the way. Amen.
Yeah.
Bartjan Medvedev. James, spell my name. I'm not Russian. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny. Bart, you're hilarious. Let me see if we got any others. Michelle, thank you so much. No comment here from Michelle, but thank you. Okay, let's take some questions. Did you see some questions you want to take?
I can't really say it. Could Gaza be solved like
Zephaniah 2? Maybe Palestinians get sent to Libya, which plays into Ezekiel 38. Is this a possibility? Absolutely, it's a possibility. I don't understand the Libya portion of the question, but I definitely, Zephaniah, when she's talking about Zephaniah 2, she's talking about the abandonment of Gaza.
Yeah. Gaza abandoned would be a solution for everything and everybody. I mean,
I agree.
And pay each Gazan $1 million and send them, somewhere else.
It would be cheaper if you did that.
It would solve everything. Israel would turn Gaza into a Mediterranean paradise, and lo and behold, everything would be great.
I bet the whole world would get behind giving each Palestinian $1 million and saying, go relocate anywhere you want.
Yep, totally.
But that would be scary because would we take them?
The United States, I think, would take part of them.
After they've been completely vetted. Okay, Dean, I think this is you. You say, blah, 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 PJ and David Tall. Can you start over? I just got here, found out Vindog is the man. Probably he will get a date with Gal Gadot before Brad. That's dude. Dean is hilarious. His dry military
somebody
humor.
dreams about Gal Gadot. He's mentioning Gal Gadot a lot.
Okay, this is an easy one. Is Iran still planning on closing the Strait of Hormuz? There's no way.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
And they threatened. They said they would, but it's like. Do you ever get in a neighborhood fight, where the bad guy says, hold me, I don't want to break your face. I mean, he tells his friends, hold me back. And basically that was.
There's some of that going on. Guys, let me ask you to resend your questions because it's too hard to go back towards the old questions. So resend it if you haven't. I'm going to just look at the ones that come out as they come out. Here's a question. Do you think President Trump is playing some kind of long game with Iran and Israel? He's always playing a long game.
Oh, yeah.
Trump is never playing a short game.
Who did, I think Ben Shapiro said 4D chess is probably, and again, we made some of the connections to what's happening with China and what's happening with other, yes, but I mean, everything is all connected. And it turns out, by the way, that Bibi's been playing a much longer game than anybody ever thought.
Bibi's been playing a game that's been rooted in 20 years.
Yeah.
Wa'il Nasser, your question is, how can I find the two Muslim commentators? I don't know, to be honest with you.
Are there?
He's talking about the Grand Mufti that we played and Sho Ismo, what's his name?
Memory.
Yeah, Memory. They do the translations for those guys.
They do the translation.
Yes, if you're looking for those videos,
if you're looking for videos from the Arab side, Memory does a great job.
Yeah.
Do you have to make a subscription to them? I don't remember.
No, they're great. They just make things available. They live on donations. But they're very, very good, and their translations are phenomenal. Really, really good. Okay, let me see. Next question. Okay.
James, I'm getting old. You need to make the text bigger.
I know. Here's a question, although from Hector Sanchez, you didn't put question at the top because it makes it easier for me to see. But you say, Pastor James, should we be worried about the sleeper cells and should I carry my piece? Well, whether or not you carry your weapon is up to you. I'm not going to talk about that, but I will say that the sleeper cells are definitely a concern.
Yes, but I think they're less than everybody is concerned about because I think that Iran did get smacked.
Yeah. I agree. I think that they're less motivated now because the eschatological bent that has motivated them to action is now gone. Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah. How about lunch?
Not a bad idea. Okay. Well, let's pray. Shall we?
Yes, please.
Okay. David, you want to do it?
Okay. Avinu Shabashamayim, we realize that there's so much fog out there, and we realize that we can only try to decipher and understand what we're looking at through a faulty lens. But we want to thank you that you are in control of all of this. We know that this is moving according to your plan, and that gives us an amazing sense of hope. Thank you for allowing us to have this platform to talk to people. Thank you for our health, and thank you for our families. And thank you for these two countries that seem to be at the center of your workings in the world today. The United States of America and the president that looks like he is working in your favor did mention God many times this week. And Israel and its prime minister, who also mentioned God many times this week. And I think slowly, more and more people are going to understand that you are at the center of this truth. And just thank you for allowing us to be some of the shofars that you use in order to get the word out. I pray for Israel this week. I pray that it will remain peaceful. I pray that Israel will start getting back on its regular, normal routine. And I pray that we will all be able to go back as soon as possible. And I just pray this in the name of Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Amen and amen. We love you guys. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight. Be on the lookout for the video I released this morning where I deal with the social media nonsense that's going on.
Check out the Balagan Connection.
Check out David's Balagan Connection. He made a great video that he released this morning. Very useful, very helpful to understand the things that are going on. And keep fighting the good fight. By the way, quick shout out to Gil Martinez. Good to see you out there, brother. I miss you. It's been a while. Love you guys. Keep